What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got another Bee Gees Top 10. This time it's going to include disco songs. I have one up already. I'll link it below. It did not include Bee Gees disco songs. Brought to you by friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way for as little as $1 a month, check out the Patreon link below or the patron link on the end screen. We could not do it without the patrons. All right. The first top 10 we put up with the Bee Gees went over quite well. Great group. I loved it. I didn't know a lot of those songs. I don't know some of these songs, but I know a lot of them. But I don't have any background, any quick facts like I usually do, but I have a ton of information inside for the songs. I mean, it's the Bee Gees, man. You got to do it up right. So if you haven't been with us before, the music won't be in the video, but it's going to be at a Vimeo link below. So click on that and follow on with us if you want to hear the music with it. If you already know these songs, just want to know what I think, hang out right here. All right, you see it below. Number 10, Tragedy, off the Spirits Having Flown album in 1979, which was their 15th studio album. Now remember, I just said it, but I'm going to say it again. There is another Bee Gees top 10 where you're going to find a lot of the classics, obviously, because it's the first one that Richard did. So those are going to be his top 10 songs. So if there's something not on here and you're like, where's it at? It's probably on that first one. I just wanted to remind you again. All right, all three of them wrote this in an afternoon off for making the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie in which they were starring. In the same evening, they wrote Shadow Dancing, which was performed, of course, by their brother Andy Gibb and reached #1 in the U.S. Prolific writers, right? But we'll get into that later. The explosion sound effect at the song's climax has been the subject of much interest. The two things that went into it were Albie Gallatin, or maybe keyboardist Blue Weaver, holding the notes on the bottom end of a piano across multiple keys, maybe as many keys as you can mash down on a grand piano, and there's Barry's voice going, and then this I don't know, I'll know it when I hear it, into a dynamic microphone, blowing air through the diaphragm to distort it. And then you mix these two signals through the generator, and whatever came out sounded like dynamite. It was very technological. Nobody had that sound. I know that for a fact. That's one of the engineers that was talking about that. Though not originally on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, it has subsequently been added to the musical score of the West End version of the movie musical. The song knocked off I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor in the U.S. for 2 weeks before that song again returned to #1 for an additional week. It was a battle of the disco songs, right? In the U.S., it would become the 5th of 6 consecutive #1s, tying the record with Bing Crosby, Elvis Presley, and the Beatles for most consecutive #1s in the U.S., a record that was later broken by Whitney Houston when she had 7. I don't know if someone's broke it now. The world's a lot different in streaming. It's a lot easier to make the charts, so I don't know. Went to 2 in Australia, 1 in Canada, France, Ireland, Italy, New Zealand, Spain, UK, and US. Yeah, that's how over these guys were. I'm sure I know this song. 1979, I would have been 7 or 8 years old, depending on when it came out. It doesn't sound familiar to me, just the name of it, but I'm guessing I'm going to know the song. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Richard. All right, if you saw like in the first 2 minutes of the song, I was just trying to figure out if I know this song. I know the little tragedy part, so I sort of know it. I don't know real well. I guess it's a little bit before my time. It also, I mean, it has Barry's falsetto, obviously, so it sounds a lot like the other songs they did at this time, which some of those we're going to be getting to. So does it just have a familiar sound to me, or do I really know the song? I'm not real sure, but a good pick for number 10, and we're going to have more of the same in a little bit. But remember I said it includes disco. I didn't say top 10 disco. We're going to go dial it way back to 1968 for our next track. Words, which was just a single. It eventually gets put on albums, but it was just a single, like I said, in 1968. Written by all three of them. Reached #1 in Germany, Canada, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. It was their 3rd UK top 10 hit, reaching #8. Features vocals from only Barry and became his solo spot in concert for the remainder of the Bee Gees' career. Barry explained in an interview, Words was written by me at Adams Row when I was staying at Robert Stigwood, their manager's place. A lot of people began to cover that song, so over the years it's become a bit like To Love Somebody. I didn't know it wasn't on an album. That's strange how it used to work in those days. We used to bang out singles one after another. Robin said, Words reflects a mood. It was written after an argument. Barry had been arguing with someone, I had been arguing with someone and happened to be in the same mood. The arguments were about absolutely nothing. They were just words. That is what the song is all about. Words can make you happy. Words can make you sad. Words was also showcased for a new piano sound, as Morris explained. We accidentally discovered the sound on Words. We were recording it after everyone had gone to lunch. I was sitting at the piano mucking about, and I wrote a riff. I went upstairs and switched on the mic for the piano. Then I started playing about with the knobs in front of me. When I played the tape back, I had all these incredible compressed piano noises. Mike Clayton at IBC Studios, who engineered all our records, then said, "What the hell was that?" when he heard the piano sound. "Come up here and listen to that sound." It was just compression, but he didn't know what to call it then. I think he called it limited. It made the piano sound like it was about 40 pianos playing at the same time and very, very thick. In words, it was very beautiful, but that sound on it made it sound like the LA Symphony on it. If you listen to all of our records, the piano sound was on it. So we've also got Morris playing a mellotron on this one. And yeah, I mean, the way Barry talks about it, everybody covered it. I feel like I should know this song, and maybe I will when I hear it. All right, down all the way back to 1968, as I mentioned, start only their third UK top 10 hit. We have Words, and Barry sounds great on this. Obviously, a little different sound because he didn't embrace that full falsetto that we heard in the last track, but really well done. I don't think I know this song. I did look up while it was going on who did the other covers of it. I don't think I'm aware of it, but there's a lot of covers of them. I think Boyzone did a cover of it that went huge in the UK, but not here in the US. But it's a beautiful song. It's very well written as well. I mean, way, way back. Very well written. Now we're going to go back to the same album that Tragedy was on, our 10th track. For number 8, Too Much Heaven, Spirits Have Flown from 1979. It was their contribution to the Music for UNICEF Fund. This song earned over $7 million in publishing royalties, all of which were donated to that fund. That's really being all in, boys and girls, on your giving. That's crazy. It hit number 1 in both the US and Canada, top 3 in the UK. Robin said on the Bee Gees interview for Billboard in 2001, this track was one of his favorite songs of the Bee Gees. They all wrote this in an afternoon off, remember, from when they wrote Tragedy at the same time. The recording process was the longest of all the tracks on this album, as there are 9 layers of 3-part harmonies creating 27 voices, though the high falsetto voices are the most pronounced in the final mix. It's also notable for being one of 2 songs on the album featuring the Chicago horn section, James Pankow, Walter, I always mess up his name, Parazader, and Lee Laughlin. So that's pretty cool too. All right, I knew that song, Too Much Heaven. Basically, you can't get too much heaven, right? I mean, that's, as you read through the lyrics, I won't break the lyrics down. Well-written song, though, again. I think that's going to be a theme. I think sometimes, I mean, I don't know a ton about the Bee Gees, but I think that's what people get wrong sometimes. You know, I know they're so identified. I'm not going to get into a whole tirade about this or rant, but they're so much identified with the disco, but that is just such a small portion of their catalog, right? And we're talking about this, and I do live streams every Wednesday on YouTube. The information's down below, but we were talking about this the other night, a couple nights ago from when I was filming this, about that, because look, everybody was doing disco. Like, artists change with the times, right? That's what you got to do. And then they had such a backlash afterwards, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but you know, you hear this and like, yes, you could put it in the disco realm of thing, like those harmonies. And I mean, Barry just sounds fantastic. I mean, this is a great song. All right, we're going to rewind it back again. 1st of May, I'm filming this in mid-April, so I'm almost there. From the Odessa album in 1969, lead vocals by Barry. It was the Bee Gees' first single to be released after lead guitarist Vince Maloney had left the group, 6 in the UK, 37 in the US. Barry said in the booklet with Tales from the Brothers Gibb that the title of the song came from the birthday of his dog, Barnaby. Morris recalled the session in which that song came about. Barry and I were sitting at the piano, he said, and I started playing the chords, and Barry started singing When I Was Small and Christmas Trees Were Tall, and I started singing along with it. No other singles were released from this album, as Robin had already left the group. This is something I did not know. The song was partially responsible for Robin's brief departure from the Bee Gees, because he had wanted his song Lamplight to be the album's first single, while Barry preferred this one. In the end, Barry's judgment won, relegating Lamplight to the B-side, and the result, Robin quit the band, but returned a year later. And I know, I mean, I've read an interview where Barry talked about, even after Robin passed, that they just, you know, they constantly did not get along because he believed that Robin always wanted to be Robin Gibb's solo artist, and that's where the competition came from. He talked about that, and you know, he talked about it after Robin had died. He goes, "Oh, that's pointless now. It's just, who cares, right?" Which, you know, we all get there when somebody passes. 1st of May, real pure vocals there at the end from Barry when we just went a cappella for the last 10 seconds. I like this song. I don't really, what is 1st of May, boys and girls? Maybe I don't know what in the U.S. I mean, it's International Workers' Day or May Day, but I don't know why he says that. Maybe just because we're into the spring and summer. I don't know, but it's about a lost love of his. It was when he was younger. Now, I don't know, we're talking teens younger, if we're talking even younger than that, but you know, they had a moment, now they don't ever talk. So, well done, a pureness to it. I actually like Words better if we're comparing older songs, but you gotta remember, it's the first time I've heard almost all of these songs. It's not going to be the first time I've heard number 6. You see it below. We got Night Fever from, of course, Saturday Night Fever, 1979. When Bee Gees manager Robert Stigwood was producing a movie about a New York disco scene, the working title for that film at the time was Saturday Night. Now, I learned some too, because I didn't know Stigwood was their manager and made the movie, so it made a lot of sense after I researched this out. Stigwood asked the group to write a song using that name as a title, but the Bee Gees disliked it. They had already written a song, called Night Fever. So the group convinced Stigwood to use that and change the film to Saturday Night Fever. The string intro of this was inspired by Theme from a Summer Place by Percy Faith. According to keyboardist, I already talked about him, Blue Weaver, when he was performing it one morning at the sessions, and Barry Gibb walked in and heard the new idea for this song. As Weaver explains the history behind this song, quote, Night Fever started off because Barry walked in one morning when I was trying to work out something. I always wanted to do a disco version of Theme from a Summer Place by the Percy Faith Orchestra or something. It was a big hit in the 60s. I was playing that and Barry said, what was that? And I said, Theme from a Summer Place. And Barry said, no, it wasn't. It was new. Barry heard the idea. I was playing it on a string synthesizer and sang the riff over it. All three of them completed the lyrics for it, sitting on a staircase, reminiscent of how they did their first international hit, New York Mining Disaster, 1941, which is also written in a staircase back in 1967. It also replaced, this is how big, this is crazy, right? It also replaced Andy Gibb's Love is Thicker Than Water at number 1, and was in turn replaced by Yvonne Elliman's If I Can't Have You, all of which were written and produced by the Gibb brothers. I'm telling you, their talents are insane. Topped the UK singles chart for 2 weeks, their third UK number 1, and the US remained the number 1 Billboard Hot 100 single for over 2 months in 1978. If you're reigning for that long, that's a big deal. Number 1, Canada, UK, US, as I said. You're in charts. Number 1 song in Canada in 1978. Number 7 in the UK. Number 2 in the US. But I got one better for you. The all-time Billboard Hot 100. All time. From the 50s to right now. This song is number 42 on the all-time list. All right, Night Fever. This is the song, maybe this or Staying Alive, that I think of when I think of the Bee Gees, of like what was really famous when I was super young, right? It's this song, or that, I don't know why I said the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack 79, it was 77. I don't know why I said that, but if you caught that, don't worry, I knew it was wrong. Right after I started the song, I'm like, did I just say 1979? But anyway, listen, man, this is a great song. Right? And I know that the problem was these songs got played to death, and then people hear them now, and they're like, oh, that's horrible. I'm tired of that. I'm sick of that if you're around it. But when you just listen to them in this context, man, it's a great song. It's well written also. They didn't mail any songs just because it's disco and for a movie. It's still really well written and a cool story behind it. All right, now we get to our top 5. We got Immortality. It's a pop song recorded by Celine Dion for her 5th English language studio album, but it was written by, the Bee Gees, who also recorded backing vocals. Came a top 10 single in Europe, top 40 single in Canada and Australia. The Bee Gees wrote it in 1996 for the Saturday Night Fever stage musical, which opened in May of 98. Dion recorded the song in June of 97, and the Bee Gees did the backing vocals in August of 97. But I know I got it down below there, but we're going to watch a live performance on November 14th, 1997, so all pretty much in a row a few months later. She performed it with the Bee Gees at the MGM Grand, Las Vegas. It was included on their live album and DVD, One Night Only, released in September of 1998. And that's what we're going to check out right here. All right, Immortality, another really well-written song. The harmonies on there are fantastic. I was never a huge Celine fan, but her voice is so pure and powerful. So that was really cool to see them, too, in 97 up there on stage, and a really good performance. All right, next up off the 1975 album, Main Course, we got Jive Talking. Trey and I actually have a review of this up. It's the only review or anything we've done of the Bee Gees before, of course. I did the last top 10 for Richard. This is the lead single, as well as a song, of course, on the 1977 Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. Hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, reached the top 5 on the UK singles chart in the middle of 1975. So even though this sounds like it should be a Saturday Night Fever era song, it was actually 2 years earlier. A lot of people don't know that. Largely recognized as the group's comeback song, it was their first top 10 US hit since How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, which was 1971, so 4 years elapsed. It was originally called Drive Talking in its early stage. The song's rhythm was modeled after the sound their car made crossing the Julia Tuttle Causeway each day from Biscayne Bay to Criteria Studios in Miami. The scratchy guitar intro was done by Barry and the funky bass line by Morris. The pulsing synthesizer bass line, which featured in the final recording, was, along with the pioneering work of Stevie Wonder, one of the earliest uses of synth bass on a pop recording. It was overdubbed by keyboardist Blue Weaver using the then state-of-the-art ARP 2600, which producer Eric Martin had brought in for the recording of this album. Weaver stated, quote, usually Morris would play bass guitar, but he was away from the studio that night. And when Morris came back, we let him hear it and suggested he re-record the bass line on his bass guitar. I really like the synth bass lines, Morris said. I overdubbed certain sections to add bass extra emphasis. All right. It was also influenced by You're the One, written by Sly Stone, but sung, of course, by Little Sister. According to Morris, while hearing this rhythmic sound, Barry didn't notice that he was going jive talk and thinking of the dance. You dance with your eyes. That's all he had. Exactly 35 miles an hour. That's what we got. He goes on to say, we played it to Arif, the producer, of course, and he went, do you know what jive talking means? And we said, well, yeah, it's, you're dancing. And he said, no, it's a black expression for BSing. And we went, oh, really? Jive talking? You're telling me lies? And changed it. So that's how it went to that instead of drive talk. I don't think drive talking would have had the same, but I don't know, as good as they deliver the vocal, maybe it would have. Morris goes on to describe how Arif gave them the groove, the tempo, everything. Robin then goes on to mention that because they were English, they were less self-conscious about going into the no-go areas, referring to musical styles that were more Blackened styles. He then said, quote, we didn't think that there was any no-go areas. It's music. After hearing Jive Talking, Lindsey Buckingham of Fleetwood Mac, by the way, I'm in the minority here, but my favorite member of Fleetwood Mac, and co-producer Richard Dashett built up the song Secondhand News, of course on Rumors, one of the best albums of all time. We do have a review of that up as well. With 4 audio tracks of electric guitar and the use of chair percussion to evoke Celtic rock. So this was the inspiration for it. And lastly, I know I got a lot of info, but these songs are important, man. Upon its release to radio stations, it was delivered in a plain white cover with no immediate indication of what the song's name was or who sang it. The DJs would only find out what the song was and who played it when it was placed on the turntable. RSO did provide the song with a label on the record itself. It was the second time in the band's career this strategy had been employed to get music airplay after a similar tactic had been popularized in their debut U.S. single, New York Mining Disaster, 1941 and 1967. But the way they did that was much like, it wasn't the Bee Gees of record kind. That was much more kind of shady, tricky. I don't know how you want to put it, but I will give it away. That's on the previous top 10. I got a story on that. Go watch that. The original studio version was included on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, and it was used in a scene that was cut from the final film. So it's not in the film. All right, let's go. All right, Jive Talking. So for me, this song could be in Saturday Night Fever as it was, or on the soundtrack, but it's not fully, Barry had not gone full high falsetto, right? And they hadn't quite gone all the way into that. So I think it's kind of been caught in between. And I think it's a great song. It's a great song. I already gave you the whole story about it. I'm not going to tell you any more about it, but it's a really good song. All right, we're to the top 3. Now remember, there's another top 10 list, so I was going to remind you that. We got the seminal, the famous Staying Alive, obviously from the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack in 1977, which, by the way, if you're younger and don't know, Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was the best-selling album of all time until Michael Jackson's Thriller came around. It sold over 40 million copies worldwide. Now, you're going to find all kinds of sales numbers all over the place for all these albums because there's no real true way to track it. In the U.S., it's 16 times platinum, so that's 16 million copies sold. And one of the fun facts, I wasn't going to give you a whole bunch because I'm already giving you so much facts inside the album, but I do got to say this about it, is the Bee Gees didn't become involved until afterwards. When Stigwood called them, it was after. I should have mentioned that earlier. It was after the movie was done. Travolta talks about they weren't even involved. Like, he was dancing to Stevie Wonder and Boss Skaggs. They wanted to use Boss Skaggs' Lowdown in the movie, but Columbia Records wouldn't let them because they were going to do another disco movie, and that never happened. So Boz and Columbia lost out on a lot of money, but just an interesting thing there. All right, this was their second single off the album. The 2021 updated Rolling Stone list of 500 greatest songs ever placed this at number 99. Won Grammy Award for Best Vocal Arrangement for 2 or more voices, alongside 3 other wins at that ceremony, including Album of the Year for Saturday Night Fever. RSO Records wanted the song to share the then title of the film, Saturday Night, but the Bee Gees refused the title change, insisting that there had been too many songs with Saturday in the title, and the album already had the song with the word night in the title. Of course, Night Fever we've already had on here. Over the years, the brothers have had mixed feelings about the song, admitting it brought them tremendous fame, but conversely branded them as a disco act despite a long and varied career before and after, which I already covered. Several words from Robin's Concord Ticket inspired the Gibbs to write the lyrics for Staying Alive. Robin recalls the subject matter of Staying Alive is actually quite a serious one. It's about survival in the streets of New York, and the lyrics actually say that. Barry also recalls people crying out for help, desperate songs. Those are the ones that become giants. The minute you capture that on record, it's gold. Staying Alive is the epitome of that. Everybody struggles against the world, fighting all the BS and things that can drag you down. Amen to that, right? And it really is a victory just to survive. But when you climb back on top and win bigger than ever before, well, that's something everybody reacts to. Everybody. The band's drummer, Dennis Byron, left the recording sessions early as his mother died. The shortage of qualified replacement drummers in the area prompted the group to try a drum machine, but it did not offer satisfactory results. After listening to the drum track of the already recorded Night Fever, the group and producer, Albie Gallatin, took 2 bars from that track, re-recorded them as a recurrent loop on a separate tape, creating the song's constant rhythm. I thought that was really interesting. And proceeded with the sessions for Staying Alive. The group jokingly listed the drummer as Bernard Lupe, a takeoff on session drummer Bernard Purdie. Lupe became a highly sought-after drummer until it was discovered that he did not exist. You cannot make this stuff up. The song was not initially scheduled for release, with How Deep Is Your Love selected as lead single, but fans called radio stations and RSO Records requesting the song immediately after seeing trailers for Saturday Night Fever, featuring the track over the introductory scene. The single was eventually released in mid-December, a month after the album, and moved to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in the US, where it stayed for 4 weeks. In the UK, it was not as popular, but it was still a hit, reaching number 4. Initial plans were to have Yvonne Elliman, then known for ballads, to record How Deep Is Your Love for Saturday Night Fever, while the Bee Gees produced their own version of the more disco-oriented If I Can't Have You for the film. Robert Stigwood thought that he would prefer the songs from different genders and directed the groups to cut the ballad, while Elliman cut If I Can't Have You. Satisfied with this switch, Elliman's interpretation made the soundtrack, and I already told you earlier, went to number 1. George Martin, the great George Martin, commented about the song saying, "The great thing about Staying Alive is it had a great guitar hook to start with, which set up the theme, that pulsating beat. It's no coincidence, by the way, that the disco beat of 120 beats per minute coincides with the heartbeat of your heart when you're excited. This was a key thing which underlined the whole tune, and when the vocals came in, the vocals were so designed that they pushed that beat further." They actually used to use this song, Staying Alive, to teach CPR, by the way. All right, let's get it. Staying Alive. I know it didn't quite have as much chart success as Night Fever, but this has got to be their most famous song, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, this song is just great. I actually know what some of the words are now. I hear them totally clearly now that I'm looking at the lyrics. I didn't always know what all the words were, but now that I read them, like I could hear it perfectly. But just a fantastic. I mean, Barry's all in on this one, man. I respect it. And you saw me singing the first part. I can actually reach. I mean, I don't sound like Barry does, but I can reach that high. I can do a little Barry imitation. But I used to do it just randomly, and it drove my wife nuts, so I had to stop doing it. So I haven't done it in years, but I did try it a few minutes ago because I was the only one home, and I could still do it. I can still do it, man. It's a little inside the scenes here at RTTC. I'd love to do it for you, but I'm not the only one home now, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. It doesn't sound good anyway. I'm actually sparing you. Now we're going to rewind it back to 1971 from the album Trafalgar. That's probably the wrong way, you Bee Gees fans are like, this dude, but I mean, it was the year I was born, 1971. How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? It's the first U.S. #1 single. Barry and Robin wrote the song in August of 1970 with Lonely Days, when the Gibb brothers had reconvened following a period of breakup and alienation. Barry said, "Robin came to my place. In the afternoon, we wrote How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?" And that obviously was a link to us coming back together. We called Morris, finished the song, went to the studio, and once again, with only Broken Heart as a basic structure, we went into the studio with that idea and an idea for Lonely Days. And those 2 songs were recorded that night. They originally wanted to give it to Andy Williams, but he declined, so they ended up recording it themselves. So they were lucky that they did that. But eventually, Andy recorded the song on his album, You've Got a Friend. Barry also explains, quote, "We might imitate a certain group later on. The group will pick up on the song and say that suits us." It was nominated for Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance by a Group or Duo. How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? Barry and Robin singing lead vocals together, sharing it, which seems appropriate considering the background I gave you there. I could have sworn I knew this song. I actually did not know this song. I did not know this song at all. I don't know why I thought I knew this song. I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound like anything I know. Well done. When you know the story behind it, it takes on even more gravity. And now we're going to get to the #1 song on the second edition, which includes disco, of Richard's Top 10 BG songs. Got to ask you, boys and girls, how deep is your love? Of course, off the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack in 1977. #3 in the UK and Australia. In the US, it topped the Billboard Hot 100 on Christmas Day of 1977 and stayed in the top 10 for 17 weeks. It's listed at number 27 on Billboard's all-time top 100. All time. It's ranked 375 on Billboard, or on Rolling Stone's list of 500 greatest songs of all time. In a British TV special shown in December of 2011, it was voted the nation's favorite Bee Gees song by ITV viewers. During the Bee Gees' 2001 Billboard magazine interview, which I referenced earlier, Barry said that this was his favorite Bee Gees song. It won Best Pop Performance by a Group at the Grammy Awards. On the song's lyrics, Barry revealed, quote, "A lot of the textures you hear in the song were added on later. We didn't change any lyrics, mind you, but the way we recorded it was a little different than the way we wrote it in terms of construction. A little different for the better. I think the title, How Deep Is Your Love, we thought was perfect because of all the connotations involved in that sentence. And that was simply it. All right, numero uno. All right, How Deep Is Your Love? The soundscape on this one is phenomenal. Shout out to Blue Weaver. I've talked about him before, but he's not only on the keyboards, but he's also playing a Fender Rhodes electric piano, which really gives it a distinct sound. And then the string arrangements by Wade Marcus. The arrangement on this is so beautiful and so unique. And I mean, if we go by the charts, because I told you it's the number 27 song of all time in the United States, this would be their most famous song. So I'm curious down below, guys, not your favorite song, but what do you think their most famous song is? Is it Night Fever? Is it this? Is it Staying Alive? Is it Jive Talking? Is it something else? Not their best, but their most famous. I'm just curious what you guys think, but beautifully written song. Beautifully written song. I haven't really gone into the lyrics on this because I know I gave you guys a ton of background and stuff, but I really dove deep into the research on the Bee Gees because I'm becoming a big fan of theirs. Thanks to Richard for bringing both these lists and kind of forcing me to dive into them. I've always kind of wanted to. I just never had the time or just never did it. But fantastic song. Okay, now I have the ridiculous task of picking my favorite songs, which I don't know, man. Honorable mentions: Words and Too Much Heaven. Faves are going to be Night Fever, Jive Talking, Staying Alive, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, and How Deep Is Your Love. So, I mean, and I like the other three songs as well. I think that's 7. Yeah, that's 7. So let me know your favorites down below. Like I said, it's a little different because there's another list that has all these other fantastic songs as well. So let me know your favorite songs off this list and your other favorite Bee Gees songs. I am going to link that other top 10 down below. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Thanks so much to Richard for bringing this one. If you haven't already, give this a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. I got over 2,800 videos up. And until next time, guys, I will see you.